and welcome to another weekly update. Exciting week this week. It's Microsoft Ignite week. It's come around quick, isn't it? So there's going to be lots to talk about next week, and there's going to be lots to talk about throughout the week. And we have all the schedules and all the sessions and everything are out now, so we can start making our picks. And that's the first thing I want to talk about this week. There are some other things to talk about as well, which we're going to cover off in a moment. But let's start with Microsoft Ignite because it's, there's probably, I'd say there's probably three big, I think Microsoft call them tentpole events in the year. There's Microsoft Ignite, there's Build, and then there's the partner event, which I think is still called Inspire. And for technical content, it's Build and Ignite really, although there have been announcements at Inspire before. So you kind of always just have to, you've got to watch them all basically. But anyway, so traditionally Microsoft Ignite was more kind of IT pro and Build was more developer. Build is very much still the developer conference, but more and more Ignite has developer stuff in it, just as, the platform that's just the way things are evolving, and it's what it means to be an IT admin these days. You have to be proficient with things like PowerShell. You have to understand what you can get at in Graph and what you can do there. So for lots and lots of reasons. I did a blog post in the week about Microsoft Ignite 2023, and I picked 10 sessions that I thought were worth attending. And I'll put a link to the blog post. If you're watching the live stream, the links come up following the live stream. After the live stream's ended, you'll see that the description updates to include all the links, just because I can't do them in real time because it's too much typing for me. What I thought was interesting, and I'll go through my session picks in a minute, but for me, what was quite interesting was this is starting to look like the session catalog is starting to look like a traditional Ignite session catalog again. So there's lots of sponsor events. There's lots of different types of events. The number is building. There's quite a lot of in-person only. There's quite a lot of stuff that's going to be recorded. So that's really good. So it starts to feel like Ignite is getting back on its feet again. Definitely nowhere near what we saw at its height, which I'd say is probably the 2019 Ignite conference. Nothing like that, but I think it's coming back. What was really interesting to me was often you can normally expect that if you follow a particular Microsoft technology, so let's say Microsoft Teams or Office 365, if you're following development on those things, then there is a product group responsible for Microsoft Teams development. There's a product group responsible for Microsoft 365 development. I mean, a couple of things have changed recently around how Teams development is now kind of part of Microsoft 365 development, but you'd expect to see discrete sessions from each of those product groups talking about their thing. That doesn't seem to be the case this year, and I think the reason for that really is Copilot. So, we all know, the past year, everything has been about Copilot. Every part of Microsoft has been told to take AI and take Copilot and put it inside their products somehow, some way. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing every session being about, not quite every session, nearly every session being about, how we put Copilot in our thing. And so, I did some quick kind of back of an envelope maths. It looks like maybe half the sessions are about AI, 20% mention Copilot in some way. So there is no session at Ignite this year about Microsoft Teams platform development. There just isn't one. So I couldn't pick that one. And that's a surprise, but also not a surprise, because if we look at the things that have come out that team in the past year, really it's Copilot. So there are sessions on Copilot, and so that kind of makes sense. All right, let's go through my picks, because that might make more sense now. So I picked a couple of different keynotes. There's the Satya one, which I think you have to watch. I think it's required watching, really. And then there's a couple of others. Each big organizational area will have its own keynote. So there's one for Microsoft 365, there's one for Azure, there's one for security. I think there's one for data, or it might be data and security might be lumped together. I can't really remember. But they each have their own big keynotes. And so I've picked two additional keynotes on top of the Satya one to talk about and to make sure I attend. One is the 365 one, and the other is the Azure one. And so for me, that kind of reflects my priorities. I care about Microsoft 365 development, so I want to know what's going on in Microsoft 365. I want to know what's going on with Copilot, but also I use Azure every day, and anything that I build for Microsoft 365 is going to be built in and on Azure. So I also need to know what's going on with Azure, and more I need to know what's going on with Azure AI as well, because the products I'm building for Microsoft 365 are going to use Azure AI technology. So I need to understand where that is going as well. So that's the reason for the 3 keynotes. And that's why I've chosen those 3 keynotes. After that, there's a couple of core sessions. There's a kind of new and next in the Microsoft 365 platform. That's an interesting one because it's actually a round table. So it's not going to be recorded, that one. But if you can make it, and it's worth checking the schedule, if you can make it at the time it's at, I would highly recommend you attend that session. It's a chance to hear directly from the product managers for the Teams platform group about what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what's coming next, and get your chance to unmute and say, well, actually, to them. So they value this feedback a lot, and it's a very useful way of interacting with them. So if you can make it, I would absolutely try and make it, and I'm going to hopefully see you there, because I'm really definitely going to try and make that one. Then I've got a session on how 365 Copilot works. I mean, I think I know roughly how it works, but this promises to be something of a deep dive. I think it's always useful when you get a big transformative technology like Copilot that has come very quickly. It's very easy to treat it like a black box. And I think that's probably a mistake, because when things go wrong, and when you've built your product on this thing and it starts to go wrong and you don't know what to do, it's very helpful to understand how it works. So, nothing's a black box. So understanding how it works, I think, will help troubleshoot, and it will also help you get the best out of it as well. So that's that one. Then the next 2 sessions are the closest thing I could find to Microsoft 365 product development sessions. There's one around extending Copilot with your line of business data and apps, and there's another one about using external data sources with Microsoft 365 Copilot. From what I can find looking through the session catalog, and again, I might be wrong, please, if you find better sessions than these, let me know. But for me, looking through, this was kind of the meat of the Microsoft 365 platform development stuff that I could find. And in a way, it's a little disappointing, because we're going to be talking about plugins and connectors, and we've been talking about plugins and connectors for months now. Microsoft has signaled really hard that plugins and connectors are going to be the way in which developers talk to Copilot. So we all know that now. So maybe this is going to be more of the same. Maybe it's going to be something new and interesting. We're just going to have to wait and see. We don't tend to go to places, things like Ignite, for groundbreaking new ideas and features. I know there is always new stuff announced at Ignite, and that's mostly for press. But a lot of the session stuff will be stuff that if you are on this every day, if you watch every one of my weekly updates, probably there won't be that much here that's exciting to you. But there will still be it'll still be worth going, because you'll get tips and tricks, you'll get ideas, you'll get things you won't have thought of. But if you don't do any of these weekly updates, and frankly, why are you even listening to this if this is you? You know those people, right? This is their once a year chance to catch up. And so if you've been building bots all year and you've heads down and you've sort of heard of Copilot, but you don't know what to do about it, this is Microsoft telling you, hey, it's plugins and connectors, get with the program. So that's what those 2 sessions are about. And then the last one I picked is about Azure Communication Services, because I think they're doing some really interesting things in that space. And so I kind of want to see what their latest demos look like and what features they've got going on, and what's happening there. I think they're going to be some good demos as well. Also, I've picked 2 other sessions as well, which are not directly related particularly to Microsoft 365 development, but I think they're going to be interesting, and I think they're going to be good. And I think partly I go to them for the speakers, but partly because it's always good to go to other places and other things. Hey, Kev. Kevin McDonald is saying that he thinks ideas from other people and different takes can really help, which I completely agree with. It doesn't matter even if you know all of the session content. There is always good stuff to be picked up. And he also says not just the speakers, but the questions being asked by other attendees too. Absolutely. If I was more organized, then I would show up to sessions I knew everything about, and then listen to the questions and use them as good blog material, but I'm not that organized, so I don't do that. Anyway, so I've got 2 other sessions that are not core, but I think they're interesting. The first is about GitHub Copilot and AI for developers. At least two reasons for going to this one. Firstly, I mean, I use GitHub Copilot every day. It has kind of changed how I do development. I'm very pleased with it. I think it's a very useful tool. So for that reason, I'd like to know more about it. I'd like to know how I could use it more efficiently. I'd like to know any bear traps that I might not know about. The second reason for going is Scott Hanselman is a very good speaker. He's a very entertaining speaker, and he's very good at explaining things. It was him I'm going to credit. I heard him the other day talking about Copilot, and he described it as an Iron Man suit, which really clicked for me as an analogy. I get that. Like, you're inside, you're controlling, but actually it's the suit, and so it can do things that enable you to do things that would just be too much, too heavy, too long for you to do by yourself. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, Scott's sessions are never boring, so it's worth attending this one if you can. And then the other one is kind of maybe a strange pick, but it's like end-to-end AI app development, prompt engineering to LLM ops Q&A. This is me just trying to get more of a grounding and more of a background knowledge around some of the stuff that's coming out of Azure ML and the AI Studio. I know how to use it. I use it in products today. Do I fully understand all of it? No, I don't. And so sitting in a Q&A session like this, that I think should be really good. So those are my picks. I'm sure you'll have your own, but those are my ones. And let me know if I've missed anything really exciting and interesting. But those are the ones I've chosen. And it's going to be a good week. It's going to be fun. I will fail to meet half of them live, but that's what recordings are for. So that should all be good. But I'm already at 12 minutes, and I haven't even talked about anything else that's new this week. So let's get on. I'll try and rattle through the rest quite quickly. Like I say, Ignite Week is always a busy one. However, there's some new capability being rolled out right now for Teams activity notifications. So this will allow applications to use the notification API to send activity notifications to the notification bell in Teams without prior registration. So up until this point, your app needed to declare in the manifest that that's what it wanted to do, and then that had to be okayed. Now you don't need to do that. They're creating a system default notification type that you can use without any permissions needed at all, which is kind of nice. It might result in a bunch more notifications. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing this particularly, unless my guess is that they've heard that having to update the manifest in that way is a blocker for some people. But I don't know. It's public preview at the moment, and you can use the notification API. You don't need to declare your activity section in the manifest, and you'll be able to send notifications that way. So that's nice. It won't particularly affect you if you're already sending notifications, because you will have already had to create a notification type. But if you're not, and you're worrying about how to update your manifest in order to do this, then happy days. You don't need to worry about it anymore. So that's that. A couple of other things briefly. There's a breaking change. So if you're using organizational insights via Microsoft Graph, so you're grabbing organizational insights data, then that's a beta endpoint, meaning it is subject to change. And guess what? It is changing. I think it's changing January 2024. So January next year is changing. It's changing in a couple of different ways, both in the call that needs to be made and also in the permission set. Full details are in this blog post I'm about to show you, and a reminder that the link to the blog post will be in the notes for however it is you're viewing this, YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever. You'll be able to see it in the show notes after the fact. I'm going to go and update it after the live stream. So these are the graph calls: beta, organization ID, settings, item insights. And it's changing to admin people, item insights, and also the scope requirement is changing from organization readall to people settings.readall. So there's a couple of things to read through there. There are some breaking changes. It's happening in January. It is beta, so you should expect it. But just make sure you update things in time before that changes. Otherwise, that'll be a rocky start to your new year if you're trying to troubleshoot that stuff. And then finally, let's talk about something that is newly GA'd, and that's the availability of Outlook rich notifications in Microsoft Graph. So notifications, change notifications, also known as webhooks, a thing that you can subscribe to where Microsoft Graph will tell you what's new to your API. It's a very efficient way of, in near real time, processing data, dealing with events. And for Outlook, they've just announced their ability to support rich notifications. Rich notifications are when, instead of just telling you that something has changed, the notification includes as part of the payload the full details of what's changed. And it's all encrypted and secure and stuff like that. It's been supported in Microsoft Graph change notifications for quite a long time. Teams has had it, I think, from the get-go. You could always choose between being notified about a new message and actually also having that rich content of what the message is itself. Anyway, Outlook now supports this as a thing on their v1.0 endpoints for all customers. There's a blog post about it, just telling you that that's what they're doing. They're also calling out their recent decommissioning of Outlook REST, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago, and they're saying that this is a good way to go instead. I mean, yes, it is. It's going to require some retooling on your part to deal with a webhook rather than a REST call. But yes, I mean, you could achieve the same thing. This is probably a good time for me to call out again my Microsoft Graph change notification builder, which could probably use some style, but is at least functional. It's free to use. It's a graphnotifications.dev, and it allows you to quickly build up these change notification subscriptions that you need to build, which can be a little tricky to build, and the documentation for them is kind of all over the place. But for the example we were just talking about, which was Outlook, if you want to find out about all messages in a user's mailbox or changes to a message in my mailbox, and I want to know when those things are created and updated, so for all of these different subscriptions, you get different expiry times. So I pull through the correct expiry time, let you choose some value that you care about and tell you roughly what it is. You need to put in a notification URL. That's the only other required piece of information. As soon as you put that in, this will give you the exact payload that you need to send off to Microsoft Graph subscriptions endpoint in order to create that subscription. So if you're doing what they just talked about, which was including the resource data, you can do that, but then there's a bunch of other stuff you need to include because, like I say, they encrypt the data, so you need to include the encryption certificate public key and a certificate ID. So lots more to talk about there. There's lots of documentation about that online, and I've done blog posts about it as well. But I just wanted to call that out as a useful tool because it's been a while since I last talked about it. Okay, let's go get ready for Microsoft Ignite. It's going to be lots of fun. And then immediately following Ignite, well, not quite immediately, but very closely following Ignite, we have other conferences on the way. We have the next one is the European ESPC, the European SharePoint and Office 365 and Azure conference. It's at Amsterdam. It's in Amsterdam, and it's in November the 22nd. It's soon. Let's look it up real time. So I don't give you bad advice. It is November the 27th to November the 30th in Amsterdam. If you don't already have tickets, I think you might just about still be able to get them, but it's happening very soon. So if you do want to go, get on that straight away. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be talking all about Azure Communication Services. Should be fun. Yeah, it should be good. And if you're there, I will talk to you there as well. Thank you, Kevin. I got it. I did get it right in the end. I had to look it up, but yeah. If you're going to be there, come and say hello. It'd be great to see you. And if not, I'm sure we'll do some blog posts from there. And it's a good time for a conference, actually, by the way. There's lots of Microsoft speakers there, and it comes immediately after Ignite. Now, a lot of those Microsoft speakers have been told they can't talk about X, Y, and Z until after Ignite because it needs to get announced at Ignite. So they will be there at ESPC ready to talk about all of their stuff in detail. And Kevin makes an excellent point that I have forgotten. So Kevin is running the now famous, because it's in its second year. Well, it's his first year, but after last year, it is absolutely famous. He's running the, I guess, inaugural, because I don't think it was technically a competition, and if it was, you won it hands down. The Christmas ugly sweater competition. He's running the ESPC ugly sweater contest. Now, if you were at ESPC last year, you will know exactly what this is about, and you'll have that image of Kevin ×4 on the screen in a ginormous auditorium's not even the word, theatre etched in your brain, and I can't ever unsee it. We're hoping to right that wrong by crowning a new winner this year, and Kevin is in charge of choosing. So bring your ugly sweaters for that. And Kevin is also Kevin is not. Somebody else is also calling out the .NET conference, which is coming up soon as well. Yes, there's lots of things happening. It's conference season. It's busy. There's also the Call and Contact Center Expo in London that's happening just immediately after ESPC. So I'm dashing back for that. So it's going to be a busy couple of weeks for sure. All right, I'm going to stop now before I either miss out another conference or commit myself to wearing ugly sweaters for any more than is necessary. I hope you have a great week, whatever it is you're doing, and I will speak to you again next time.